This might be one of the most information-packed videos that I have dropped recently, guys. We have an absolutely insane Pokemon leak, news, rumor, information dump video for you guys today. And I'm not even kidding, guys. We got a lot to talk about. I love these dump videos because we literally will be talking about everything, quite literally everything today. So, of course, stick around. You are not going to want to miss this one. So make sure to subscribe, turn on the post notifications so you don't miss all Pokemon news, leaks, and updates. Let's hop right into it. I think the biggest stuff in today's video are some leaks about the champion and the professor for Generation 10 or Winds and Waves. It's actually quite insane. So starting off with that, it is actually related to the anime, but directly relates to Winds and Waves, saying end of an era, Horizons will be the final weekly Pokemon anime starting in Gen 10. The Pokemon anime will be seasonal with shorter fixed number of episodes, and it's from a very reliable source. And here are the pictures of the leaked characters. So this is actually the professor. Now, we heard about this leak months ago that the professor is gonna have some sort of like time travel situation going on. So I guess in the anime they may be young like this, but then in the games they may be older because obviously, you know, looking at this person, there's no way they could be a professor. This is a very young person. In Winds and Waves, there's gonna be some sort of, you know, time travel to where they do look old and they are a professor that is wise and has a lot of knowledge and stuff. So it may even be possible that we could get both of these characters in the game, like a young and an old version of the professor. And I believe this is the champion in the middle here, which is awesome. And this is concept art that has leaked. And we did see people kind of come up with a design of this. They teased / like drew their own version of this character right here. You can see the waves, and I do believe these are clouds for like winds, so winds and waves. It makes sense. Bro, we see the fit, okay? Bro, we see it. And we're not really sure exactly who this character is. People think it could maybe be Navi from the anime. Here's a fan art of the champion as well. That looks pretty cool. Somebody asked Central, my biggest question right now is, can somebody tell me where Ringo actually went? Ringo was the pre-production name. Karasu is the production name, so that's normal for Game Freak and just probably video games in general. But Rex became Orion. Pegasus became Titan. This is Generation 8, the Galar region. Pegasus became Titan. That is Scarlet and Violet right here. Ringo became Karasu, so this should be Legends 3, so maybe Legends Galar, unless they do change it. And then Project 2030 will become something else, or P30. We think P30, the Project 30, could be Generation 11. At this point in time, we don't really have like a solid answer just yet, but obviously P30, Project 30 is going to be a big game. It's going to be some sort of mainline big game. Winds and Waves is coming out in 2027 with a typical 3-year life cycle of a Pokemon generation. If you add 3 years to 2027, of course 2030, it does make sense and it would line up to be Generation 11. Now, this is a very interesting post by Light over here saying, did Game Freak tease Winds and Waves years ago? The 25th anniversary concert with Post Malone featured tropical islands, underwater coral areas, volcanoes, forests, and even floating islands, which that's an important piece of information right there. Considering the Gen 10 leaks mention procedural generated islands and large underwater areas, were we already getting a glimpse of Winds and Waves in 2021? And then here are some photos right here, which, dude, I don't know. It could have just been a ginormous coincidence, but this may not just be a coincidence. Game Freak and Pokemon, they always tease at this stuff ahead of time, and this one to me is just a little bit like close to the nose. I don't know. I feel like this has to be some sort of hint. And since this was 2021, they probably already kind of had a lot of Generation 10 planned. Like they probably kind of knew what they were going to do with the game, at least for the most part. Or maybe not. Maybe this quite literally was like what inspired them to do a tropical region because they just liked how this looked. Who knows? For Pokemon XP, we actually do know one of the major announcements that they will be dropping. So of course, just very quickly, the Pokemon company themselves quite literally said that there's going to be some major announcements for this year's Pokemon XP, the first ever official Pokemon fan event. But it says there's more than competition related discussion too. Get into the World's mood with a closer look at this year's World's plush and a chill listening party at the end of the show featuring the 2026 World's soundtrack. Don't forget to tune in for a special Pokopia announcement taking place for Pokemon XP in 2026 Worlds. Now, I don't think it's only going to be a Pokopia announcement. I do think there's going to be more announcements on top of that. I can't imagine them saying like major, huge, important news just for it to be Pokopia. I love Pokopia, but I don't think it's just that game. If they're making this big deal out of just a Pokopia announcement when we already have the announcement for the DLC, like we already know what to expect for part 2 and part 3 kind of. Part 1 of the DLC just dropped. I can't imagine this big announcement being for the DLC. My thought is, now this is my theory, what if they are going to announce that new Gen 10 Pokemon or the Generation 10 starters or just something with Gen 10 connecting to Pokopia will be announced. Now, that would be something awesome. And it does make sense for the Gen 10 starters just to be in the game right now. those are the only Pokemon from this new region that we do know of so far that have been officially revealed. So why not put them in Pokopia? This has happened before where Game Freak and the Pokemon Company, like, they put Pokemon in a game before they are even supposed to come out in their generation. That has me hyped because what could they possibly announce? Soul saying, ironically, Bank shutting down supports my theory that the world's XP gift Greninja could be Ash Greninja, because without Bank, Ash Greninja would become one of the rarest Pokemon forms, totally inaccessible without Bank. Maybe they want to finally distribute it again. So that's a great theory. Obviously, this hasn't been announced yet. That would be sick if we were to actually get Ash Greninja again, because people are not going to be able to get this guy again unless they, of course, you know, get it through, let's just say, risky reasons. Maybe there'll be like some gift in Pokemon Champions, or could you imagine Pokopia if they gave us specifically Ash's Greninja in Pokopia? That probably will not happen, but that would be kind of cool. Now, with this other character that we did have leaked, which hopefully Game Freak does not take down this video. I'm a little bit scared to show you guys these images, but this is another leaked image of one of the characters in Gen 10, which this could be the same girl. You know what I'm saying? This is a Soul Silver art theory where it would kind of make sense, I guess, if you're just kind of, you know, comparing the characters that we have leaked and more leaked from the anime and stuff. So it could be a completely different character. It might not be the same, but it would be pretty cool if this were the same character with some more of the time travel stuff going on. And this also for art was also talking about like the future of P30, Project 30. And guys, listen, I'm sorry, this video literally is all over the place. There's so much information that I don't even know how to like properly format this one, because the last like 4 days, people are just posting crazy stuff. It's actually insane. Basically, like, you know, giving the dates of like the future Pokemon releases, you know, 2027 Winds and Waves, and the DLC, and Legends 3, Pokemon Seed, which is the MMO, and then Gen 11, 2030, and of course the same thing, but just different years down here if they do end up giving another year gap. Central responding to this theory saying if they are targeting 2030 for Generation 11, then this is their prediction, with 2027 being Winds and Waves, and then the next year we'd have the DLC for Winds and Waves, and then the year after that we'd have Legends 3, so hopefully Legends Galar maybe, and then the DLC for that Legends game, and then the next year 2030 would be Gen 11, and then 2031 would be the 35th anniversary of Pokemon, which is insane. What the heck? Gen 11 DLC announcement for the same year, and then the Seed reveal for 2032. So the Seed, Project Seed, the Pokemon MMO game, could be a 35th anniversary kind of thing that they're, you know, aiming for that kind of era of Pokemon, which would be pretty cool because it is going to have all of the Japanese-based Pokemon regions in it. So it would be a pretty cool like anniversary game for us, if that makes sense. Soul posted Pokemon Leaks theory. The supposed premise of Winds and Waves prequel anime is a bit convoluted. From prequel to Winds and Waves, how did the kid professor age so much while the champion barely aged at all? And then he has some theories saying a storm/powerful Pokemon quickly swept up the kid professor and brought him back in time before the champion was even born, and had to live his life through that moment until Winds and Waves. Through this, he gained so much more knowledge about Pokemon evolution that he actually became a professor. The kid professor and champion are closer in age than what the artwork suggests, so maybe the kid was taken back in time, but not that far back, just as a weird phenomenon that they use as a simple plot device. 3, maybe there's no time travel and a storm swept him up and at the same time mysteriously aged him up. All this taking place many years before Winds and Waves. It is also important to say that the prequel anime may have been heavily changed or scrapped. This is a concept sheet of a series that was meant to release this year, and it would have been shelved for over a year. These are some solid theories, and it is true, stuff could have changed, but I don't know, I feel like they probably haven't changed that much if they're going to be, you know, putting all this time and effort into it, but who knows, they could change everything. What an interesting concept to have the professor be very young in the anime, and then in the games he's very old. So I'm assuming sometime throughout maybe the game we'd learn like the lore of this guy and like how he became old, or maybe like in the anime, you know, at the very end when they're wrapping it up, the finale of it, maybe you could just see the actual events that led him to becoming an old professor. I think it makes the most sense for time travel. I think that's got to be a pretty solid idea, because Pokemon, they love doing time travel stuff. Like, we have seen many different things of time travel in just Pokemon games over the years. So I'm going to ask Central what their perception about the champion is and what other champion is the closest based on your personal ranking. Central saying N, and N is from Gen 5, the Unova region, which he is awesome. Definitely just such a cool character, which also has a crazy fit, bro. We see the fit. This new champion could be N's cousin M, or, you know, X, or I don't know, B maybe. And Central leaks saying that the MMO is still in pre-production, which isn't really a surprise. We had this come out like a couple of months ago that was still in pre-production, so they are still working on the MMO, but I do like to give you guys little updates on this every time we do get an update, just because it's a very cool topic. Somebody asked, why doesn't ZA have its own anime yet? And then Central said not enough time, probably just because they have all of this stuff going on, which makes a lot of sense, honestly. And somebody asked about Project Bauer, which I do believe is a Pokemon movie that was scrapped, because Central did say that one was canceled. So yeah, Project Bauer I think was in the Terra League and it was a movie, but just never saw the light of day, I guess. So I guess the anime is going to take place several years before the games, and it will explain the lore behind the legendary Pokemon. Somebody's saying, wow, we actually get to learn about the lore of legendaries this generation, already better than Scarlet and Violet and Terrapagos, where Central said, yes, all 3 legendaries are heavily involved with the story of the game. So all 3 legendaries. Now that's a pretty interesting piece of information, because obviously we're gonna have 2 legendaries, the box arts, so this game should be bringing back that 3rd legendary, which is awesome. Think of, like, you know, Rayquaza being with Groudon and Kyogre, or Kyurem being with Reshiram and Zekrom. I don't think we have any leaks about that 3rd legendary, and I do not believe that is the Seed Pokemon. The Seed Pokemon, for all we know, is not a legendary. It's not a mythical. It doesn't really have a rarity, I guess. It's kind of just going to be like a mysterious Pokemon in a way that maybe could evolve into a legendary. Who knows? It's not just saying that the one other girl that we have no idea who it is just a random anime, and I'm assuming that means original character. So maybe that character doesn't have anything to do with the games or anything. Somebody asked again about Unova Remake. Central said it already happened 3 years ago with the Indigo Disc, or like the Blueberry Academy. I am still going to take this to my grave. I do not believe that was the Unova Remake. There's no way they would do us so dirty with Gen 5, man. This is a region that deserves to be getting its own real, I guess, remake, or just a Legends game, dude. We cannot have the Blueberry Academy be our visit to the Unova region. And I think the final update of today's Pokemon Go Ultra Unlock Water Festival event is now starting to roll out. So it runs from August 18th all the way to the 24th. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching today's video. Let me know what your favorite topic in this video was. Hope you guys have a fantastic day. If you guys are watching this far in the video, comment down below paper. Just the word paper. See you in the next one. Peace.